Today I'm showing you how I did a little organization station for Paul during this office makeover that I'm doing for him. So I used some skinnier pieces of wood called, I think they're flushing pieces of wood, and then these craft dowels from Michaels, and the measurements are going to depend on the length of the whiteboard that you want. For this, you can definitely sand it by hand, but I have an orbital sander, my nail gun, wood glue, flat black spray paint, but you can use a stain or a different color, clamps, a measuring tape, and then a pencil. You can use a miter saw or a handsaw, either one. But then I got this piece of whiteboard that was just at my local hardware store. I measured the width of it and the length because I liked it, and I was just gonna frame on top of that. To frame this out, I cut down two pieces that were 23 3/4 of an inch, and then two pieces that were 47 inches. As I mentioned, I am actually building on top of it, so I'm not putting those pieces of wood on the outside of the whiteboard. I'm putting it directly on the top on the edges, and you can cut them at a 45-degree angle if you want. I just cut them straight because it was easier. I sanded each piece down and I also painted them black since that is what is matching Paul's office, and then I laid them back on top of the board how I showed it before. But before you lay the piece of wood actually on top of the whiteboard, you want to line it with some wood glue, and then when you do put the piece on top, you want to clamp it so it stays in place while we nail gun it. For the width of your nails, you want to make sure you're accounting for the piece of wood you need to go through and then to connect it to the whiteboard itself, but not to go through the entire backing. Once you've decided on that, get the proper nails and then repeat that process to all the sides. Now I'm going back and just covering up the whiteboard itself along the edge so it meshes with the black, and you want to make sure you choose a gloss or a flat. So this is a flat craft paint that I picked up at Michaels. I added some wood filler to the nail marks, and then I moved on to creating like sections within this whiteboard with the craft wood. Everybody works different with their organization, so if you wanted to like use craft wood and space out a mark for each day to make like a weekly planner, you can do that, but I'm actually just gonna add one section for the weekly planner, one section for goals, and then a little section for reminders and things he shouldn't forget. As with this entire DIY, you can paint those whatever color or stain them if you want to. I'm painting them black, and while they're drying, I went ahead and sanded down where I used the wood filler and wiped it off because I'm going to go back over that with some black. Once those section pieces are dry, I just shimmied them into place, and the shorter one actually is super snug between the frame, so I didn't need to glue it down, but I did glue down the longer piece. I left the sections completely blank because I didn't want to label them with stickers for like a weekly planner, because I feel like people outgrow certain ways that they work as you progress in life, so I left it blank. That way Paul can label it whatever way he wants to do it. I hung this up and I realized that it was just going to be way too plain if I added pictures, so I decided to DIY a little pinboard so he can hang up some visual inspiration or put up quotes if he doesn't want to write them on the actual whiteboard itself. For this, I actually had everything on hand. I had an old frame, some cardboard, scissors, hot glue, and burlap, but you can use whatever kind of fabric you want. I cut the fabric down to the size of my cardboard. I am using a 16 by 20 frame. I was way too lazy to mark, so I just kind of folded it over on itself and cut as I went along. I do highly recommend steaming or ironing out your piece of fabric. It just makes it look a lot cleaner. I put my cardboard at the edge of my fabric and added some hot glue. That way it's kind of like a starting point for you to just flip it over on itself like you saw me do before. As you flip it, you just want to hot glue each side that you're flipping it to make sure that the material is like stretching out and flush. And as you do that, you want to make sure you're pulling pretty tight as well. I didn't do anything fancy to conceal the edges because that backing is going to do that for you, but I did cut it pretty close to the edge and make it as straight as I could, alongside with just adding some hot glue to the inside of the cardboard and folding over the excess onto itself to make it look a little bit more just put together. Now, I know who I'm making this for, and I know he's not going to use this to the absolute extreme, so the fact I'm using cardboard is perfect because he's kind of like a one and done type of guy. He's just going to push his visual inspo into this board and then leave it. But if you are planning on using this a ton and you're going to like thrash it, I would definitely invest in some kind of thicker cushion or like cork board or something other than not cardboard. You're getting a little sneak peek into Paul's office makeover, but I couldn't help but share. So I hung these guys together alongside a print from my friend Tamara, who I did Wednesday's video about. I also DIY'd 2 mini shelves, which I've done before on this channel. I'll link to that as well. But you want to curate this moment how your brain is going to work. And I know, Paul, if there's too much on the wall, he will not use it at all. I tell you time and time and again, creating a space for you depends on what you like. So make sure you're meshing it with your vibe and what truly works for your day in and day out, not for an Instagram post. As always, thank you for the love. And if you've made it this far, well, there's a giveaway, but you got to go to my Instagram to see what it's all about. Thank you for the 60K, guys. I'll see you Wednesday with another DIY.